Hey, welcome to Chris's Building a Forge. And this is my workspace. As you can see, I have an 8x10 shed in my yard that is not looking like it's in great condition. I'll show you some close-ups of the floor. I found out when I went to start buying tools in a forge that the floor on this thing had collapsed. And for me to be able to use this as the forge, I had to figure out what I'm going to do to fix that. Now, the underlying cause for this was the fact that the shed itself sat directly on the dirt for a number of years. When I moved into the house, I didn't know anything about owning a shed. I didn't know it was supposed to be lifted off the ground, and I left it as is. Well, after years of no ventilation underneath there and direct contact with very moist earth, the whole base of the shed has rotten away. All the framework for the floorboards are starting to rot. So I found this out in moving everything out of it and into our new shed, and I had to develop a plan. So yesterday I used a 3-ton car jack to get underneath this thing and lift it off the ground a few feet, well, maybe a little over a foot from where it was, so that I could work on cutting out the floor without anything being in the way. And the next step is I'm going to cut out all of the crappy floor that's still left in there, get as much of the old rotten base out of the way so that I can at least walk around in there and start prepping the ground and start removing all of the rot from the remaining part of the shed so that I can put a new wood floor in here. My eventual goal is I'm going to slide a new wood platform underneath this thing. I'm going to have to get it raised up a little higher before I can do that. But I'll slide a wood floor underneath, and then eventually, once the wood floor is in place on top of its new cement blocks and gravel foundation, I will lower everything back down and proceed to mount the walls back to the new floor. And then from there I can finally move my new propane forge in here, as well as my anvil and some of the tools that I've gotten so far, and get to work actually forging stuff. So watch as I work and tear out this floor. So, got about half the floor out now, and I'm really surprised by how few support beams there are in this thing. Not that they've rotted away, it's just that whoever built this, they didn't put enough supports for the floor. There's just massive gaps between where the floorboards are sitting, no cross beams to support anything. All I just found right now is a 4x4 running directly underneath the middle here. I don't know what they were thinking for an 8x10 shed, why they thought that would support anything for any amount of time. So I'm not feeling as bad about this whole thing, knowing that the people that put this shed here not only did it wrong by putting it on the dirt and letting it rot, but didn't even build the base properly. It's really just surprising, really surprising. Guess it's my own fault though for not checking into this earlier. I could have had this thing raised off the ground years ago, but even then, if I was to move an anvil in there or a nice heavy forge in there, I don't think that floor would have lasted long with the frame that's left. So, guess this project is pretty worthwhile. I'm going to switch it up a bit. I'm going to get my pry bar, see if I can pry some of these floorboards up. Sawzall is great and all, but it can be a bit of a pain in the ass. I bought this DeWalt 40-inch multifunctional utility bar when I was ripping floorboards off my old deck. The thing is a beast, so I'm hoping it can do some damage in this shed. So this was the 4x4 in question that you could see. This was the good end. This was the not so good end that rotted away. You'll also see that this is not a 4x4. It's actually two 2x4s that they nailed together for the support. So one more interesting design choice when it comes to this shed. Well, that's all the floor that there is for today. I have concerns about the base of this shed. After tearing it apart, I found quite a number of issues. I'm going to have to see if I can reinforce it before I shut it up for today, because parts of the front aren't even connected anymore. So let's take a look. This should not be loose and free hanging like that. Now, I noticed as I was pulling out this last floorboard that this was really moving around a lot, and I saw that this was no longer connected over here. Not by any problem of my own. It was just the inside of this thing in the front was just not in great condition, and it's pretty obvious. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in here. All of the wood base, you can see the rotten wood lying there. All that wood base is gone on this side. And then you can see kind of how this thing was angled. Where it's still good wood over here, all the way over to here. It's still a solid base over here. But over here it was sitting in the dirt. And as you can see, it looks like some of that wallboard is going to have to be removed as well. Not happy about that, but that's something I can patch up after the fact once I have a new base on this thing. I'm not too concerned about that. This right here was where the 2x4s were nailed together, and that was the main support beam going across the center of this thing. So you can see that's the remains of it here, and that was a big portion of the base of the floor. So I didn't realize that as I was taking things out that was coming down as well. It's all got to come off anyway, all of this base, even the good part. And I'm going to just basically remove it all, clean up the wall base as best as I can, get any of the rotten plywood board out of there that was the floorboards, and then hope I can get a new floor in here and properly mounted. So as you can see, the floor in here is not really level in any sense of the word. In fact, it's odd how weird some of the proportioning is here. You can tell that animals have come through this and made nests and things over time. Over here was an animal nest. Over here we've got the remains of a nest that was underneath the front of this thing. So I'm going to have to do some prep work on this ground to try to even it out as well. Not too much since I'm going to be putting gravel down, but got to clear some of this rotten stuff out and see what I can do. Oh, and this spot here, that is a patched up hole from when the previous owners used this as a chicken coop. This shed, when we moved in here, was literally a chicken coop and was full of chicken shit. With this big hole in the side that had a tiny little door that didn't fit properly. So that was a temporary measure just so I could store a lawnmower and stuff in here. I'm probably going to have to do a little bit better job fixing that up too when I do start getting to work on the inside of this thing. But overall, I think the shed still has lots of potential. We could probably get a good number of years use out of this thing, and hopefully really start to begin my forging journey once I can actually put a forge in here.